talks about some drivers where they just, once they retire, like you've just literally retired last year, right? That's it for them. Like they go into the abyss. Ambrose is a good example.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but then like yourself, you've retired. Do you still have that hunger even now just to turn out for the job? Like myself, I would find it a bit of a struggle because I'd be like, it's too much. Do you know what I mean? Too much of a good thing. Yeah. Because it's a drug. Like racing's a drug, right?
My role's very different now. To be honest, I'm so done with driving, and that's I'm hard on myself because like, why don't I want to get back in? But right at the end, and I haven't opened up about it a lot, is I suffered a lot of anxiety because I couldn't do everything. So I really enjoy the job I do, which is I'm passionate about motorsport, and I love, I want to leave a legacy or at least help grow and make the experience for everyone better. So I actually love what I do. It's really weird. I love going to a racetrack. That's the 10% of cool is a racetrack and see it all evolve. It's the 90% of shit that you deal with through the week is a hard one. I wake up every day and I talk about supercars and car racing, and it does get a lot, but I love it. So it's not, it's passion. And a lot of people in our business in supercars, there's passion there. So it doesn't get too much. The driving was getting too much because that takes a lot of focus and a lot of commitment, and I wasn't giving it that. And I was letting a lot of people down because you get out of the car and you got no time to think about going faster. You rock up to a track and you're half shagged already. And I was listening to a podcast, and I remember sitting at Tassie last year, and we had a great round. We were basically equal on points. We were off the front row and had an opportunity to win the round. And I'd won a race, and it was a bit of a return after COVID. And I'm sitting there going, I don't really want to be here. So something tells you there and then that you're pretty well done. And, I have a responsibility now with what I do with our commercial partners and the sport, and you're going to let someone down if you're doing it all. So I still wake up and love it. I still love going to a racetrack as much as I whinge about it. And, to sit on the grid at Townsville and Newcastle and the work you put in and all the stuff you're trying to bringing new partners in and new experiences and seeing, perfect example is stadium trucks. That was absolutely fantastic, that first event, because you've brought something that has enhanced the crowd experience. So you've actually contributed back to the whole outcome of what the sport is.
Brooke looked into that, actually. You said you loved stadium trucks when you saw it, didn't you, Brooke?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that was like, that's an epic event that, that you brought over here. Before we get into that, I just wanted to for those who are listening and wondering, because I think we haven't mentioned it yet, so if anyone's wondering what you're doing at Supercars, you're the head of commercial sales?
Yeah, head of sponsorship and sales. My boss gives me a hard time because I gave myself my own title, but it's it's bloody hard to explain, but essentially my job is, if you look at supercars and you see the colour of names, so everything from Repco to BP to, we had the Thrifty Newcastle 500 to Bow Repairs this weekend, my job is to bring those partners in. Yeah. So, and that comes in many forms. It's supply, so the beer you drink, the soft drink you drink, the activations you see, and then a lot of the broadcast integrations as well. So everything from a track map, which is Pizza Hut, which is really cool, but it extends to a lot more than that now. There's a lot of stuff people don't see. So the main role, yes, Supercars, doing a little bit of work now with some of the senior management on some career paths, some other category development stuff. So eventually I'd love to do more. So not just be the salesman and the sponsorship guy. It's having more of an influence overall. One day I'd love to run the sport. I know it's a big call, but I think when you come from a racing background and you come from that side of the fence, and then obviously you get good at the business side, if that marries together, I think you can do it really well.
Yeah. How many years have you been with Supercars?
Coming up 7. So prior to that I was I was selling my own stuff. I obviously, like anything, bloody expensive to go racing. We all know that.
I was taken back by you said your first go-kart race, and your dad said you wanted to race that. Is that basically where it started, like the commercial, what you're doing now?
No. Before that, I had a marble trade. I had a marble trade at school. I had a BMX trade. I had basketball cards, Ninja Turtle. I've always been a dealer, wheeler and dealer. I still do marketplace stuff. My wife wants to kill me. But yeah, it did. It taught me the value of money, and it taught me the value of what you need to do to get money to go racing, because essentially it's a hobby or it's a passion. So if you want someone to fund your passion, and turn it into a career, you've got to turn it into a business. And it's motorsport, but it's marketing. So it's marketing through motorsport, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The easiest part's driving, though, for me. Like, I've told that to other people. Like, there is that fascination of people being like, I want to be a professional driver, but we all know like 2% of them get paid, right?
Yep.
I think sponsorships in anything is difficult, whether it's art, sport, whatever. Everyone struggles with that unless you've got that, like you said, Craig, you've got that ability to do that sales thing. I've got my sister-in-law is very good at it. She's in sales for pharma and very, very good at it. It's something that we both suck at, Dan and I. It's just a different thing because we come from creative backgrounds and that. So it's a different like sort of, ability that you're used to and that in terms of that. But with what you're doing now, do you find also over the last 7 years with Supercars, I know we've had COVID, but has it changed with sponsors? Are they more receptive to come on board? Like, has there been challenges for you in the job over the last few years in terms of the game of Supercars? Because there has been a lot of change in terms of how it's run. Were you there before when it was Ryan Sanderson running it and into it? Because there's been that change in also of how it's been marketed. So it's also looking at, has that changed how sponsors are receptive to it?
I don't know, Sando. G'day, Sando.
We are still trying to get him on.
Yeah, no, he'd be a good yarn too. I joined literally just after the Archer Capital takeover.
Yeah, okay.
So that pre-Archer was amazing because it was obviously more run like an events company and so forth. Archer was still good, but obviously when you've got shareholders and having to bring a return, essentially what happens is the costs, your overheads you want to screw down and make, your gap for profit is bigger. So that probably at times is a detriment to the sport. The biggest problem obviously was the time where the TV coverage was changed. The AFL deal took a lot of the sting out of the 7 deal with like our broadcast, and then obviously the switch to Foxtel, which it upset a lot of people. But without that switch, I think the sport may not have survived.
Yeah.
Because like any major sport, AFL, NRL, it's based around your TV. And without the right TV deal, it really struggles. It covers your salary cap or your dividends or your rec fees as well. So I think, again, where we are now, that COVID was actually a good thing for us because it probably brought more about shit. We need to focus on the personalities, and we were the only live spot. I still remember the Grand Prix, and then I remember how odd it was. It was like literally one day we had jobs, the next day it's like, oh, we're done. We're all out of work. And then, wait up, we've got this E-Series. So a core group of people come back to boot this E-Series up. It should be all right. And it went ballistic.
Yeah, I remember watching over lockdown.
Yeah.
I don't know why it attracted me.
Yeah, but even
Nath did a good job. Did Nath run that?
Yeah, or Nath and a whole group of people. Everyone hooked in to do it. But what it did, had a bit of fun, and it was on a time slot where my wife would watch it. And my wife's my harshest critic. But she actually thought it was quite funny because it would crash.
Yeah.
But they'd keep going, and there was a bit of fun there. So I suppose we evolved from that, and we stayed relevant. Where a lot of things didn't stay relevant, we kept a fixture going.
Yeah.
But coming out of COVID, that was probably where we were starting to get this really we were just starting to hum, and COVID hit and set us back a year and a half. So all the hard work, and it's not just me. We've got a great team. He'll probably kill me for mentioning, but Jamie Black, who's our head of commercial, and we've got a great partnerships team with Mitchie Kane and Shaney Rudges and those some passionate people in there. And we were all on this same journey of we need to tidy up this commercial program. And then with these new owners, they're actually investing back into marketing, and we've got growth in digital. So it doesn't happen overnight, but they're putting fundamental blocks in place to grow the sport. You can't grow reach without investing. So they're challenging the networks to look after us again, and they're investing in digital, investing in marketing, but you can only do it in small steps because the money runs out pretty quick. So they're getting there. So I think we're probably a year behind where we should be, but that's probably more COVID. But you just got to look at the numbers. The crowd numbers are up. The corporate hospitality numbers are going well, and I feel the fan engagement is getting better, and they're more focusing on the drivers now. If you think now the changing of the guard, you've got, Will Brown and Brody who are, mixing it up with Gizzy and Brock Feeney, but there's other guys on the grid, Chazzy Mostert, and those personalities are coming through. So I think the biggest halo effect is Drive to Survive.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. My take on it after obviously people have seen Shane over in NASCAR.
Yep.
Is they could actually more so focus on they could watch the NASCAR broadcast and focus on that driver thing, that element. Yep. Do you know what I mean? Even before, which I reckon was great back then in the NASCAR days. Even I think they had the rain out in one of the NASCAR races recently. They literally had like an hour show because it was rained out the next day, so they had to make up content for a full hour.
Yeah.
On just about drivers, and they just had a race hub and they were just talking about drivers the whole time. But it creates that character and aura around the drivers for when the lights go out, everything about, what socks they're wearing to what underpants or who's their girlfriend on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and everyone knows about them.
Yeah.
You speak to any of that. And obviously my role, you go into companies and you got to try and educate people on the sport. And as soon as you start to talk about, my wife really follows or my girlfriend really follows F1 now. I didn't know how good the sport was, and I know the drivers, and they, and so that halo effect of putting motorsport back in. You look at Formula One now in the US, like they had a few attempts and it failed, and now it's massive in the US. They just hit the mark right with that. Now we probably couldn't replicate that, but definitely the focus on motorsport is back. We're sort of back in the shiny lights. And also, I think the ball sport codes, and I can't bag them out, but they've become so clutter. It's all the same. We're developing things that are a little bit different, with a new car and a few other things. I still think we've got a long way to go. I think we can mix up, and again, I get in trouble, but mix up some of the race formats a bit more, and probably get a bit more biff and bars.
Well, I was actually going to ask you, Craig, because you said eventually you would love to run like Supercars as the boss, as the head man. What would you do to change, like to entice more people? Because I've literally just asked that just as a general fan to people on this show before. What would you do to change Supercars in your own way? Because it's just it's a forum here. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, look,
and they can listen, by the way, bosses.
Yeah, I know. That's it. Sorry. No, I don't think there's huge amounts to change. I think it's just more. I think less education, more action.
Yeah.
So you look at Grand Prix, for instance, 4 short races. It was chaos, but you had you on the edge of the seat. So I actually think shorter race formats would be really cool.
Yeah.
And one-day events.
Yeah.
Like Sydney. Again, there's money and TV rights and all that, so it sounds simplistic. There's so many more things, but imagine. I don't know if you guys grew up with it. I did. The old Oscar NASCAR, the Twilight events, where it was like literally sweet racing for 4 or 5 hours that went into the night. And guess what?